Too bad, not too bad at all. Hi, Tony. How are you?
I'm good, Ellie. How are you going?
Not too bad, not too bad at all. Just sorting myself out here. Just I've been answering emails from students all day because we're putting them into this. Oh, that's nice. Into their groups.
Yeah, been some confusion or some students not reading instructions.
They're not reading instructions. And we said to them, fill this form out and send it to us. And they've been going back to Teresa saying, I push the submit button and it won't go. And we've said, fill it in and send it to us. Don't push submit buttons, just send it to us.
Oh, nice. In what universe does Teresa have to manage those problems?
Well, the trouble is they know her name because they just see Teresa Davis, Master of Commerce. So they send her a message, poor thing. So she's actually thinking of taking her name off it just so nobody will email her, because she sends this thing out to me and I went back and said, these guys just aren't reading. I said, it's a really short little thing. Please do this. And they don't look at it. So I'm just really, get a bit cross. But what can you do? What can you do? Oh, anyway, now, oh my goodness. See, we've got the next one up for now. What's the rubric that we went out with? And I'm just making sure I've got all these things in front of me so I can see what I'm talking about. Make it a bit bigger. Sandra should be joining us soon. Make it bigger now. Oh, make that extended. Yeah, because we've got the other one. Hi, Sandra.
Hello. Hello, everyone. How are you?
Good. We're
I dropped in a little earlier and thought, don't know whether I'm in the right spot or not. But
I must admit, I did that before and I thought, there's nobody here. I went back and looked at Wings things. I've got to go through things. I'm thinking, oh, crap. And I'm trying to do that again. And then I thought, this is too hard. I'm just going to hit that button again and see if it works. And it did. Praise the Lord and pass the curry powder, as they say. Well, my family say it at any rate. It's an old joke in our family.
Yeah, so do we hit start webinar? And
when we hit start webinar, that means then they start arriving. So I'm just going to get up. I'm just going to do.
So folks, just as a general comment, there's only been a couple of queries on discussion board, but the couple of queries relate to the fact that I think some students may feel that this is a lecture rather than a Q&A consultation. So I have responded saying this is not a lecture. And for the next one next week, in the announcement, I've put down that it's not a lecture. It's an opportunity for you to consult. Okay, so that'll be interesting. You may need to frame your introduction that way.
Okay, well, one of the key things I was thinking what we would start with is by, this is what we're doing and you're going to be doing it for these weeks. But the really key thing is I want you to listen to Tony, who is going to explain to you what's really required from you to do this. That you have these 2 sessions, 2 focus areas, but he's going to go through and explain what it is to put down a reflection thing. So it's not just sitting in the bath and thinking things up. You've actually got to link it back. And so I'm going to kick over to Tony pretty early.
All right. And Tony, the thing that I've noticed also again on discussion board and the emails I think we've had, Ellie, is that the question itself of the subject matter talks about, so I'll get the right words because there's
first you need to demonstrate strong understanding of the topics. Second, you need to focus on 2 sections of the course to demonstrate a strong understanding.
2 sections of the course, focusing on 2 sections of the course. So the word section has caused some confusion. So perhaps
modules.
Do we want, I don't know, I'm asking you, do you want themes or modules? I've been very generic in any response I've given and I've suggested that students come here. So do you want them to focus on modules or topics? Because there are topics within the modules.
Yeah, that's right.
Themes. So we could, confirm all of this obviously
because
at the end of today.
Yeah, what they're looking at is, if they looking at, because these 3 things, but they could find one particular reading really good, or they could find something related to the workshop really good.
So it's pretty much an open plate, is what we're saying. Open plate
for whatever they're looking at, and they can pick on something in particular.
Okay. So what we might do then is we might make an announcement or put it on the individual assignment discussion board. The announcement would be better. We might expand on that word to, on Monday, so that we can say that this is what came out of the webinar.
Yeah. All right, beautiful. So I suppose we should get underway. Should I push the button, or who wants to push the button?
Oh, I think you're it.
I'm it. Okay.
Because you're the recorder and you're going to get the cloud recording.
Oh, okay. It's recording now. So I put start seminar. Okay, so let's start.
Hi, Tony. Forgot to say hello.
Hi.
Sorry.
All right. Now I'm assuming that
it's been a long day.
I'm assuming the students are here.
They're coming in now, Ellie?
They are indeed. I can see them down the bottom. Lovely. So we'll give them a few moments for people to arrive.
Have some raised hands already.
Yes.
Might be better to direct students to put questions maybe in the chat window, and at the end, maybe you can filter through some and
Yeah. So good idea.
Why don't I be the filterer?
Yes.
I'll filter those questions that are coming through. Well, you just need some help.
Yeah. All right. Okay. So if you've got any questions or queries, put them into the chat function, and we will try to get through to those as we get towards the end of it. Okay. So those who've raised their hands, did they have something specific that they wanted to discuss, or did they want to know? They seem to have taken down their hands. That's fine. Okay, we'll just keep them still coming in, so we'll give people a moment or two. All right. Well, still people are still coming in. We hit 200 on that. All right. Okay, well, we'll get underway for the moment. Hello, everybody. I'm Ellie Meredith, and of course, this is Sandra Dwyer and Tony Cannell, who, of course, is our fabulous guy from 5100, who is here to give you assistance in what it is that we're looking at today. So today we're looking at 4A and 4B, and this is more a discussion about what we're anticipating from you to present to us. And we'll answer any queries or whatever else we've got that, try to answer as many questions as we can. But really what I want you to look at, and probably the first thing I'm going to do, is I'm going to hand over to Tony Cannell in the basis. Now, you would have seen his video that he put up under 4A and 4B, but I want him more to explain, what he actually, what for him reflects a reflective practice. So perhaps, Tony, away you go.
That's nice. Sorry, Sandra.
I'm going to interrupt you before you even start. Hello, everyone. Welcome. Good to see you. Thank you for your notes on the chat line. I'll be recording the notes on the chat line, and at the appropriate time, I'll direct the queries to myself or Ellie or Tony. Today's forum is particularly around assignment 4A and 4B. If there are any questions you have that are different from that, and I've seen a few come through already, there are other avenues to pursue those questions. Yes. You are able to, for any personal matters, email Ellie and I using our appropriate email address, and there are discussion forums that are all headed by topic. So please head to those. Ellie and I spend a lot of time going through those discussion pages, making sure we respond to you. So we will only focus on your questions related to the assignment. Welcome, Tony.
Thank you, Sandra. And thank you, Ellie. Yes, I'm Tony Cannell. My function at the business school is to support students with their academic language and learning skills. So today we're focused more on the learning side than the language side, but it is very important, as Ellie and Sandra have said, that you read the instructions for the task. If you do have questions, you can pop them in the chat window. We'll try and get to them at the end. And it's really encouraging to see over 200 students in this session. I think that's a really good indication that there are people here with some learning needs, some questions about these particular assessments, 4A and 4B. I run a unit called Bus 5100. It's also known as Communicating in Business. So the unit that we provide is free, it's non-credit bearing, and it's basically a space where students can rehearse and practice a lot of these types of academic skills that become part of your assessment. So things like reflection. So you may have seen the video where I kind of unpack the history of reflection in education. What I might do, just to make this a little bit more interactive, is I'll drop in the chat window a little screenshot. So if you want to read along while you're listening to me, I've just popped a little screenshot in the chat window, which is basically the framework that was developed by Rolf and Kolb around what reflection is and what a reflection usually looks like. Now, there's three sort of key components. We usually think of them as the what, the so what, and the now what. So in a good reflection, and remember your reflection is limited to 2 minutes, a 2-minute video, and you'll be recording 2 videos at 2 different junctures in the semester. So in a 2-minute video, you need to basically do a little bit of description, and that's the what part. So what is the piece of learning, or what is the content area? What is the experience that you're focusing on in your reflection? So it's very important to begin by clearly identifying what you are going to provide your reflection on. And that's what we call the what stage. Next, in a good reflection, we expect to see some so what. So what are implications? So you've identified a piece of learning content, but why is that significant? Why has it, or how has it left an impression on you? How did you find it challenging? How did you find it rewarding? So focus on the implications of that learning experience or that content area for yourself. And it's really important that you understand a reflection is personal. It's deeply personal. So we would not expect to see a lot of students' reflections being entirely similar. Each learner will have their own reaction and their own list of implications as to how they've encountered the learning on the unit. So your reflections should stand quite separately to other students' experiences and learning. It should be personalized to you. The final stage of a good reflection, so this might be in the final third of your 2-minute video, is about action. And that's kind of, all right, I've understood the implications of this piece of learning content, but now what do I do? What skills do I need to develop to further my understanding of this content area? Or maybe where could I apply some of this learning to my own goals as a business learner, or as you transition into the workforce? If you currently have a job, where would you see the learning intersecting with your role, with what you're currently doing at work? So they're the 3 kind of essential elements of a reflection. The what, which is generally descriptive, the so what, which is more about your own insights, thoughts, feelings, and impressions, and then the now what. What do I do with this? What do I do with this experience? Where do I take my learning from this point? Usually reflections are about experiences, but this assessment is a little bit more focused on content areas within the unit. So rather than saying, well, I had a group meeting and I'm going to reflect on how I managed the meeting, you're actually required in this assessment to focus on a specific piece of content from the unit itself. I've noticed some people are asking questions that are related to the semester 1 delivery of this unit, and that's an important distinction. This assessment has changed. It used to be a kind of weekly or regular submission of a written reflection, But now this reflection is in two parts, two videos. Each video will be 2 minutes in duration. It's also really important that you look at the marking rubric so that you understand what we're looking at when we're trying to allocate you marks for this assessment task. So just in summary, we're videotaping our reflections. You'll have 2 of them, and your time limit is 2 minutes. When we teach skills around presentation technique in BUS 5100, what we often say is it is not a race. So the student who says the most number of words in 2 minutes does not win the assessment race. Slow down, focus on your clarity, make sure that your thoughts and ideas are organized. And because this is a video recording, it doesn't mean that you just hit record, videotape whatever comes out and then submit it. You can actually take some time to re-record, to think about how you're going to structure your reflection and be a little bit more methodical. Follow your own sort of idea of what you want to deliver in the reflection. Don't just try and do it off the cuff or spontaneously like I'm doing it now, because you might sound like you're rambling. And remember, clarity and cohesion. Speak in a slow, clear voice. Emphasize key words, particularly words that are describing content areas, your own insights, and then those so what or now what actions. Be clear. Make sure you have cohesion. Usually you show your cohesion by planning what you want to say. So spend some time thinking about what you want to deliver in your reflection, how you're going to go about doing that. Give yourself some practice, and then I'm sure you'll be capable of submitting a really rich and useful reflection. I'll just end now on this key point again. Your reflection is personal. You're not telling us what you think we want you to say. You're telling us what you want to say. It's about a perspective of learning, and that perspective is your perspective. And that's really, really essential for an effective presentation. I might hand it back over to Ellie and Sandra now, and we'll continue on this web forum. But thank you.
Thanks,
Thank you,
Tony.
Yeah.
Do you want me to throw questions at you guys so you can?
Yeah, that's probably a better idea.
As I've been going on. So thank you everyone for your questions. There are many that are very similar. So I'll try and distill those and pass those on to Tony and Ellie for a good response. The first one is, are we recording today's webinar? Yes, we are. You can see we've hit the record button, but as always, we cannot rely 100% on the technology. So of course we're recording, and yes, we will publish it if the technology permits. Okay, so there've been a couple of questions, Ellie and Tony, around what the recording might look like. And in particular, are students able to use some visual aids in the recording? And this relates specifically also to the requirement for a reference list. So are students able to use PowerPoint slides, for instance, during their presentation? And then is the reference list best presented using a slide at the end?
Yes. Well, I mean, in terms of this, you're not doing it like a vlog, so it doesn't have to be recorded in one hit. You can do it and go back and do it several times. In terms of that, you can use PowerPoint. So if you want to put up something quite specific, put up a PowerPoint slide so you can get the message across. Remembering when you're doing a PowerPoint slide, less is more. So don't put up everything on the one page. Just restrict what it is that you're putting up there and getting across the key points. The other, but that's when you get to the end and you put up your reference list, you can just put it on a PowerPoint slide and put that up at the end. Here's my reference list. And you don't have to read it or anything in relation to that. You just simply have to put it up so we can see it. So
thank you. Sorry, Ellie.
No, I was going to do something else, but no, keep asking good questions.
Yeah, I'll keep firing at them to you. Right. Okay. So one that I am able to ask, and which Tony did already address regarding the written journal, please be aware that this semester, all of the assessments are going to be different from the previous semester. Now, you may have friends and you may have had discussions with them around what the assignments look like and how they're going to work. Please only make reference to the Canvas site for this semester, the one that you've been given access to. We're very clear in our communications using announcements and releasing the assignments. So they're all different. So please make sure you just focus on what you've been given, not what previous students have done. Therefore, no, a journal is not required. That's that response there. We've also addressed the verbal APA 7. That now is, I think, is a much preferred option, that you put up a PowerPoint slide at the end with your reference list. Okay, next question.
Sorry, I might just add to that. Because we're learning online and we're submitting things digitally, sometimes we lose the personal. So I think it is quite important that you appear on your reflection video. Yeah. So no matter what form you take, whether it's you just speaking to a camera or whether you're narrating a PowerPoint slide, whatever tool, digital tool you're using, we need to see you and hear you for at least part of that video. It's just good etiquette more than anything, isn't it?
I think that's absolutely true. Yes, we do need to be able to see you. And I think that also helps when you're getting across a particular point or something, that you can use your voice as well as...
Sorry.
The dog. As well, I mean, use your voice to actually emphasize the words that you're using, but also give us, show us that something excites you and involves you in it. So don't just go, then we did this, and then we did that, and then we did this, and then we did that. That's really not what we're after. We actually want to talk about it and say, I found this particular topic really interesting because we looked at X, Y, Z. Now, to do that, you can look at whether it's something from the Canvas side, whether it's from a reading, whether it's from what you did in the modules and in the workshops, anything that you like that you can actually take to show us what it is that you do. So initially, you've got to go through and say, and we want to see the linkages between them. So you've got those linkages between how it developed, et cetera, et cetera. Then the next thing you've got, 45 seconds, and that's actually quite a long time when you think about it, to focus in on each of those areas. So 45 seconds on one particular area, then you link it into the next one, 45 seconds. And as Tony said, you've then got to do the wrap up of it all and showing us at the end what was really super important. But make sure that we can actually physically see you. Very important.
Thank you, Ellie. Ellie, I might ask you to expand a little further on one of those points that you just raised. There's a few queries around what do we mean by 2 sections, or what is the specific topic? So maybe we could expand a little bit on what that means so that there's a little bit more definition around what they're allowed to focus on.
Yeah, well, what we're looking at here is looking at either 2 topics that appear within the course. So if you're looking at in week 1, we looked at Dweck's things of mindset. So if you want to do something in relation to mindset, you could say you're really interested in the work by Dweck and the sort of information that she put out, and talk about how you felt in relation to that. So it can be something as simple as picking up a reading, or it could be something that's on the Canvas side. But whatever it is, you've got to pick on one thing. Now it can be a number of things that are related together. In topic 2, we looked at X, Y, Z, or whatever those ones were, and all of them together gave a particular point as well. So, but you just need to pick out 2 items, 2 sections that you wanted to look at specifically within this. So you might choose something from week 1, week 2, week 3, whatever.
Okay, thank you. So students, you can see that the topic is quite a broad category. We're really trying to engage you or find something that you find engaging and are interested to progress further. So thank you, Ellie. Maybe one for you and Tony, I'm not sure. This is a very, very good point raised by a student. Given that the students will also do a bit of research on this topic, when they are doing the reflection, are they required to say, according to an author in the speech? So do we have to do that as a reference in the speech or not?
Tony, what are you thinking? I mean, for me, you can actually talk about it. You can say, like I said before, you can say, we look at Dweck's work and she did this. So you're actually referencing Dweck. in that thing about the mindsets. So yes, you can do that. Tony, do you have a viewpoint?
Yeah, look, I wouldn't let the requirement to verbally reference content to take away all of the language you could be using to show us your reflection, So I think if I was doing this, I would probably have a little slide at the end with a list of visual references, just to make sure that I have covered everything that I've mentioned or touched on. So no, I wouldn't say Dweck 2020 page 11. So you wouldn't verbally reference in the same way that you would reference within, let's say, an academic essay. You might just mention the author's name and year, perhaps. But be clear about what content areas you are making reference to. I think that's really important.
And I think that is important. I mean, and the thing is, as Tony said, you can make a reference to somebody's, paper or whatever it might be. You don't have to go through the full academic reference. You can just refer to them. And at the end, they will be on your reference list anyway. But you can, it could be something that led you on to something else that you read, which was not specifically within the course, but you got to it through the activities of looking at the work itself.
Lovely. Next question, folks. It's a good question. So there are 2 submissions. One is related to the materials that you're going to learn in weeks 1 to 7. So really quite focused on the creativity side. And then the second for the back half of the course, weeks 8 to 13, that relate a little bit more to the analytic. And the question is, do you need to focus on 2 sections for each submission?
Yes, because if you look at what it says on the assignment, we actually go through and give you a description. So how to do this, and I say, you've got 2 minutes to complete this task, and the first thing, this is suggested approaches. It's actually on the site that's gone up.
Terrific.
And it says spend 20 seconds outlining the course. Try to remember this shouldn't be just a run through of things. Try to provide linkages. In the second section, spend roughly 45 seconds per section that you're looking at, that you've chosen to focus on. You're required to explain why these sections are the most important to you. This may not be what others decide upon. It's going to be your focus. And the final 10 seconds, so you've got the 20 seconds, then you've got 45, and the final 10 seconds allows you to wrap it all up. So if you add those together, that's 2. So if you do that for both of them,
marvellous. Okay, so each video, 2 sections, 2 themes,
sections.
2 areas, and I really like Tony's words of areas that are deeply personal to you, something that really resonates with you as a learner. What's really engaged you or interested you in this moment? Okay, that's really, I think I've covered most of the themes and most of the questions. There were very similar ones. I'm going to not go any further back in the chat line, but what I'm going to do now is ask you from now, moving forward, let me know if there's anything you feel that wasn't addressed, and I'll have a look at those. I'll give you a moment to add those in the chat line.
I can see a couple of questions. One's from Kevin. Thank you for the question. Just around getting additional tips. I could give you a couple right now. This is a general tip. It's not specific to this unit, but it is very useful in terms of your studies on the Master of Commerce. Some of the units that you're working through have a large number of enrollments. We're talking around the 1,000 level. So differentiation becomes a really, really useful tool so that you can stand out from the pack, particularly if you're interested in rising to that level of distinction, high distinction. When we're marking anything, if we see things that are very, very similar to each other, so if everybody's submission looks the same, sounds the same, the visual components are the same, they make the same kind of insights about the same kind of content areas, then it's very difficult to differentiate yourself from other students. Students are very, very good at networking. We know this. They're very good at sharing ideas. They're very good at saying, what are you going to do? But when you're looking at your own work, take on board what you see other students doing. Maybe borrow some of the really good, effective ways and ideas, but it has to be your own. Make it personal to you. and differentiate yourself. Say, how can I do something a little bit different to what everybody else is doing? And I think that's probably the most valuable general tip that I can share right now. The other tip is come to Bus 5100, because we do a week on presentation technique. We do a week on APA 7. Each week, starting next week in week 3, you'll notice in your unit slides that there'll be a little description of what we're doing in that week. So that would be a tip as well. Come to Bus 5100.
Yeah, I couldn't stress that highly enough. It is such an important unit. You don't pay for it; it's free. The university puts it on. Guaranteed, best place to go if you want to get information about presenting your assignments in our unit, other units. It's the best place to go. It's completely free and totally available to you. But yes.
Right. Got a couple more questions that have come through post that discussion. Key Bom Han wants to confirm that we focus on one topic for each of the submissions. So Key, thank you for the question. In fact, it is 2 areas or 2 sections that you need to focus on for each submission. So you need to find 2 areas of interest, 2 focuses for each submission, not 1. I hope that's clearer now.
Yeah.
Sienna, thank you for your question. Contents from weeks 1 to 7 mean there are 7 sections that we can choose to focus on. Sienna, great question. In actual fact, there's probably a whole lot more than 7 to focus on, because within each week there are particular areas of interest that are part of the learning materials, and you may choose any one of those. Okay, Ellie, I'll let you respond to this one. This is in terms about the timing of the video. Is there a 10% leeway, as there are with all submissions in the business school?
Yes, we will acknowledge that there is a 10% leeway. So you can go over, I think it's like 5 seconds or whatever, but don't go completely overboard. Try to keep it around that 2-minute mark. Yes, there is that little bit of 10% that comes in, and we acknowledge that there is a 10% in terms of this, but don't put in something that is 2 minutes and 30 seconds, because that's way over the percentage. You need to bring it right down. So
okay,
2 minutes and a couple of seconds, but not 2 minutes and lots of seconds.
Lovely. I've got another couple of very good questions. Can we refer to the material that is not included in a reading list given by the lecture? So can students perhaps find a topic that is of interest to them and do further research?
Yes, but this is a bit of a tricky question, because it can be something. I said it could be something that you've come across in doing the reading. So we've given you readings to look at, and from that you've seen something else that you actually want to go and investigate. And you can look to do that, but the point is you need always to be tying it back to the area that you're focusing in on. So as Sandra said, you can be focusing on something out of Module 1 and then Module 5. So they're 2 separate areas that you've got to look at, but you've got to be able to link it back to us to show us why it's important and why it's important to you, and that you link it back for us.
Thank you. Another very good question. Thank you. Do we need to submit the presentation video only, or the script as well?
No, just the presentation.
Marvelous. Thank you. So only the presentation.
Only the little video.
Okay, lovely. And this is another good question. I think we've covered it, but I think it's worth reiterating. Do we need to build up interconnections between the 2 areas of interest that we're going to choose in each video, or can they be completely separate?
Well, obviously for the first one, you might be making those connections to the next section, because we haven't got to that part. But in the final one, you might want to link it back to what you learned in the first. But there's no there's no actual requirement for you to do that. So in the first section, because that's the only bit that you're looking at, it'll be hard to nominate how it leads into the analytics. So you're really in this one focusing pure on creativity.
Okay, so they can be separate, folks. You can do 2 separate areas of interest.
Yes.
One last question. We'll see how we go. Is it possible to do the reflection by taking 2 of the required or selected readings from the weeks and to review those?
Well, yes and no. You can look to do that. But I think it would, what you need, as Tony said initially, it's got to be a reflection that can come back to something that you feel a strong personal, relationship with. So I think if you, it's not a reading review. So I don't want you just to focus in on this is a reading we did and this is what I learned from it. I want you to actually say what it told you and how it links back to what it is that you're wanting to do.
It's not specifically a literature review. Sorry.
No, it's not a literature review.
Sorry for getting in the way too, Sandra. I'd just add that we've marked a lot of reflections. Reflective tasks are a part of learning in many contexts at the University of Sydney. But one thing I can say is I've seen a lot of reflections that do not rise above the level of just description. And that would be a mistake. If you limit yourself to just describing or restating or summarizing a reading, then there's no room for your personal insights or making connections, as Ellie said, across content areas, or injecting your reflection with a little bit of, okay, well, I've learned this and I think that would apply to my own work. So make sure you rise above the level of just pure description. That won't be enough to produce an effective reflection.
Yeah, thanks, Tony. So look, one of the comments in the chat line talks about, am I able to talk about what my previous views were and how they're changing as a result of this course? And I think that's an excellent note in the chat line. That's really what Tony and Ellie have tried to focus on as a good way to differentiate your piece of work. Okay. A simple question about the reflection and how you need to submit the files. You will see that there are 2 portals available in Canvas. Portal 1 is assignment 4A, and that is for the reflections of weeks 1 to 7. That's the first submission. The second submission is 4B, and that's not due until the 11th of November. But of course, we need to provide this information to you early on so that you're keeping a good set of personal documents or notes or reflections so that you know what you're going to build on ready for your submissions. A confirmation that in fact the videos are individual and not group assessments. That's correct. Thank you, Eleanor. It is in fact an individual submission. We do have group assignments and we will release those and provide appropriate information for those as the time approaches. But these are individual assignments.
Individual. And I was going to say something before, now it's escaped my mind. Sorry, I'll think of it again. I was about to comment.
I think we've covered most of the other questions there. Can our reference list include the readings on Canvas? Yes, of course, because that's the material that you're using perhaps as some of your inspiration. Oh, here you go, Tony, a question for you. Does BUS 5100 provide a proofreading service to check grammar and vocabulary mistakes as well, or does it just deliver writing and presentation skills?
Yeah, the proofreading service, which is separate to our workshops for BUS 5100, we'll be releasing the link to book yourself in a little bit closer to when written submissions are due. But I can say that next week, when we start our workshops, I'll be explaining to students that attend BUS 5100 that they actually have first choice or first access to proofreading. Now, within what we call the allowable assistance clause of our assessment policy, myself and my small team, we're allowed to look at draft work. So if you're working on an essay, for example, and you need some help with your sentence structure, word choice, grammar, spelling, punctuation, your APA 7 referencing, things related basically to your language use and structure, we are able to give you some input. What we cannot do is we cannot reteach topics, content. We can't give you additional resources. We can't provide anything outside of what is allowable within our assessment policy. Again, there'll be more information on that proofreading service available to BUS 5100 students in our workshops next Thursday and Friday. Great question.
And I have to say that the reading workshops that the students have actually attended these sessions with Tony in the past, we can see the differences of the students who've actually have gone through and have used this process. I've been working with Tony over a number of years and on different courses, and they always stand out. Yeah, so it's worthwhile.
A few more questions, folks. Can we, I'm not too sure I understand this question, so if you're the person, you may want to clarify this. Can we edit the presentation video? I'm assuming the answer to that is yes, of course, you are able to edit it and submit a final version that you find appropriate as a final submission.
Absolutely.
And then another question, I don't really understand this one, I'm sorry, so you may want to clarify. Does the video and reflection have to be related? So I'm a little confused there, you might want to clarify that if you need to. Can we present with PowerPoint slides? I think we've covered that earlier. The answer is yes to that. But of course, remember, it's all about you. We don't want to just see the slide. The presentation and the reflection is about us seeing you as well.
Yeah.
Okay, Key-Bomb Han, thank you for the question. The reference list, in fact, we would recommend that you do not do a verbal reference list. We do recommend that you do a slide at the end, a written slide, so not a verbal reference list. So I won't give you an example of what that looks like because we do request a written list. Okay, just sliding through these now.
One there from Kevin, who says, he's got into the habit of journaling daily, and I've noticed that my reflections tend to focus on tasks, improve of to-dos, and stop doing. Are there questions that you found useful to ask yourselves in your own reflections? Tony, I think I'll...
I'll get back to that idea of how personal a reflection is. If you give us a 2-minute video where you critique your tutor's teaching style, I think you've probably moved outside the parameters of this particular task. So make sure you read that task description carefully. But there may be insights, as Kevin's alluded to, where you say, well, I read this article on creativity and it got me to think about my own approach to being creative, and I've decided to do this, or I've decided to stop doing this, or to try this. So yes, there is room within this assessment for saying that the content has impacted me in this way and it's triggered a response in me. Again, that really grounds your reflection and makes it much more personal than just saying, well, we read about reflection and it was interesting. That's not a reflection.
Thanks, Tony. Yaping, thank you for your question. It focuses on PowerPoint slides and whether they are compulsory or not. So, Ellie, I'll hand that to you. I'm sure the answer is no, but I'll hand it to Ellie.
The answer to that is no, they're not compulsory. Though obviously, at the end, you'll have to put up the PowerPoint slide for your reference list. So there is one PowerPoint, you would have to put one at the end, but they're not required. But if you want to, you can use them. And it depends. As I said, you can edit this. You don't have to do it just in one hit. And you can. And so whether you choose to talk and not to use PowerPoint slides, that's fine. If you want to use a PowerPoint slide, fine. But as I said, less is more. We'd also like to see you in these reflections, because otherwise it's just a boring thing of PowerPoint slides.
We probably should be a little bit careful about just saying PowerPoint. PowerPoint is a product. It's a consumer product by Microsoft. Thank you. Very useful. It does have a function where you can narrate your slides and you can appear on screen as you do that. Great for this assessment. Some students will be using Prezi. Some students may use Canva. There are a lot of different digital tools that are available, some of which you may be more comfortable with. So when we say PowerPoint, what we're really talking about is a slide set that you can do a voiceover or a narration to.
Yes. Yeah. Thank you, Tony. Yes.
Thank you. Next question. Good question from Shiyu. Do we have to talk about the reflection question, which is at the end of the module? So I think that's a good. Sorry, I think that's a good question. I'll leave you to respond.
Yeah. Right. And each week you've been finding there are the reflection tasks that you've got to do for each week. And the reason I say to students you should do those is simply because it means that if you write it down, you should be reflecting on those questions. Because it means when you come to the end of it, you'll be going through and you'll be reading all the things that you wrote about. And then you'll be saying, oh, particular areas, that was a particular interest. That's what I'm actually going to put in my 45-second bit. And then you'll be going through and say, oh, and that was another thing. And I'm going to do another 45 seconds on that one as well. And that's why they're useful. Sometimes you might be going through and saying, yeah, this was interesting, but, it didn't really, excite me that much. But if you do them, but you don't necessarily have to reflect back on doing that. That's just a technique for getting you to reflect. Otherwise, you'll end up in week 7 going, oh, I've got to do 7 weeks of reflections. What am I going to do? And this week we actually get you into the habit of actually doing that.
Thank you. Lovely. Thank you, Ellie. Another question from Yinfei. Thank you, Yinfei, regarding APA 7. So I think Tony would be keen to help you with that in bus 5100. But yes, indeed, there is a link on Canvas for you to get to APA 7, and also the university library site. There's some really fantastic pages on that are very quick and easy to read and understand.
Yeah.
Okay. Good question from Zitao. We've covered this a little bit, Zitao, already, but it is how can we talk, how can we reference when we're talking? So what do we need to reference? That's a good question, I think.
Well, it depends on what you're referencing. And as we were saying before, you could say, I know it was his poor old Dweck, but you can say, when in reading Dweck's assessment of mindsets, that gives, so you're actually indicating who the author is, and it's about mindsets, and we know that one. If it was someone else, then you might need to, Johnson's 2020 articles when he wrote about X, Y, Z. If it's not something that we referred to, then you just put in the work that he did in a year. Would be, and then you go on to discuss it. But it's really got to be, as Tony and I both said, it's got to be a reflection back on what you've read. It's not just a literature review. It's got to be something and how it connects back into the changes that made for you. But that would be the easiest way of doing that.
Thanks, Ellie. And then just a couple more questions, and then we might wrap it up soon, folks, because the questions are drying up a little, which means we must have responded to most of your queries. Zishun, thank you for your question. Do you need to submit the video recording only and a separate document for the reference list? So the response to that would be no. It needs to be one submission in the portal from one person. So you are able to put your slide using your visual material at the end of your presentation. So just the one submission. Well, this is actually a very good question. Is the assignment anonymous, or do you introduce yourself when you do the video? Hello, I'm Sandra. Here is my personal reflection. It's a very, very good question, Jim.
It is a good question. Most work, when you put it into the university, all we want to see is your SID number. But because you're actually doing this one, we will know who you are. So it's probably better if you say, yes, hello, my name is Sandra, and this is what I'm talking about. Because otherwise you've got to put up your SID across the bottom of it. So I think you can, and certainly, when you're putting this in, you will need to tell us your SID, so we will know that. But it is linked in. But you can certainly say, hello, I'm Ellie, and this is my reflection piece.
Yeah, I have a question. So Jinan's question may be about the way that it will be marked. So Ellie, do you know if the marking, when it's allocated, it will be randomly distributed to the markers? Yes. Maybe that might clarify that.
Oh, yes. If that's the question, then yes, it'll be randomly unassigned. So it won't necessarily go to your workshop person. No. It'll just be randomly allocated through all the workshop allocate people.
Yeah. And actually, that's a really great question, I think, Jinan, because I've noticed on the document that, in fact, I do need to amend that so that we know how your submission file name is to be submitted. So that's a good point for me to take up, and I'll make sure that we amend that and publish it.
So it comes in with your SID on it, so we know whose marks we're allocating. But you said, but we're happy if you can say who you are.
Marvellous. All right. Tony, you just explained a little bit that we are expected to talk about our own feeling. Could you please give an example? I'm still confused about what that might mean. And look, this will be the last question. Thank you, Yaping. I think this will be the last question, and then we'll close out the session.
Okay. Here's an example. The document I shared with you before was written by Rolf and Kolb in 1984. That's my verbal reference. When I read that document, I realized that they said that a good reflection needs to be individual and you should make your own insights. Say things like, well, I found this difficult, or I found this really interesting, but I'm still not sure about this part. Now, for me personally, being critical of the learning material is not something that I was trained to do or that I've experienced in my educational life or in my life as a student. So I find it really hard to actually do that, to be critical and to inject my own personality into the content. So there you go. That's an example. I've just shared my own feelings on doing a reflection.
And I think it also, in these circumstances, this idea about that everything is fine. If you do a reading and you think, I don't really agree with that, then that's good. Tell us about it. I did this reading and I found that it left me conflicted because everybody says it's a great reading, but I found problems with it because of whatever readings, and I think that links it back. Or it could be something that it could be on the Canvas side, or it could be from workshop, whatever it is. If you found that as a problem, again, that can be an issue. Or you might find that it was, as Tony said, I found that difficult because in my education focus, I've never had to do that, and now they're actually asking me to look at that. And I think again, it's important. I mean, and this is the idea about part of the thing of creativity is sometimes is failure.
Yeah. Thank you, Ellie. There are just a couple of last points before we move on. Tony, I thought it might have been me because I'm a panelist with you, but the document didn't attach in the chat line. And not for me, and it appears for some students as well. So perhaps you wouldn't mind resending that.
Can you see it now?
The screenshot, yes.
Got it now.
Okay.
Yeah, absolutely. Marvellous. All right. So thank you for that note, everyone. I thought it might have just been me because I was a co-host. And I think that's probably all. Do we need to add subtitles, charts, mind maps? This is up to you. This is part of your research, Fujia.
We're getting a lot of no's there from saying they can't see it again. Can you actually go back and screenshot? Can't see the attachment. Go to the click
Third
on
time lucky. Third time lucky.
Third time lucky. Let's see how we go.
So I think that's, I mean, I can see it, but
okay. How are you going, folks? Tony's popped that through again.
I'm happy for Ellie to share that document or Sandra could upload it perhaps to the Canvas site.
Yeah, we'll do.
We'll also be covering a lot of that in Bus 5100 for students that are enrolled there too, so you will get access to that.
Marvellous. All right, everybody. Thank you so much for attending. It's really good to meet you at last. Yes. It's week 2, and we wish you all the best with this assessment. We will have another webinar to assist you with further assignments, so we hope you found it helpful. I want to extend our thanks to Tony for joining us today and for providing you with some absolutely fantastic tips, not the least of which is join Bus 5100. That's a great tip. And also to thank Ellie for her expertise today as well. So thank you, guys. Have a lovely evening. Have a lovely weekend. Rest and rejuvenate.
All right. Bye-bye.
Right. Thank you, folks. Ellie, I just wonder if we can save the chat line.
I think you can.
Yeah, me too, but I don't know if I can see that or do that.
It's not going to work out.
Minimize pop out, no. That was terrific. So sorry, before we get lost in all of that, that was terrific. Thank you.
Yeah, the numbers are going down, so.
I might just see if we can just remove the participants.
Yeah.
Thank you, everyone. We'll upload the recording as best we can as soon as we can.
Okay.
I'll save chat. I've got it.
Oh, you've got that, have you? Great.
Let's see if I can save it.
Or do I have to do it?
I've got a tick next to the box that says chat save. So it is in the chat itself.
Good.
Just down near the bottom, there's a little 3 dots. And you can tick a save chat.
Okay. Chats.
Folder. Okay, so lovely. I'll copy that and just pop that straight in our Dropbox. Okay, I've saved it.
All right, okay. All right, well, then we can end this.
Yes. Thank you.
All right.
Lovely. All right, so you and I meet very quickly in a moment on Teams. Yeah, see you soon.
All right, bye.
Thank you, everybody. Goodbye.
Bye-bye.